Happy Mother's Day. Welcome to the Scoop World Order. It is Sunday afternoon, night. The Sixers have just been eliminated by the Celtics. A lot of good stuff going on. There's a big time movement in recruiting right now. Aaron Nolan is actually moving on to the Elite 11 final, so that's very interesting for a guy that some people didn't think was good enough to play at Ohio State. He is ascending, beat out Jaden Davis. We're going to talk about a big time defensive tackle out of IMG. We're going to watch some of his film. Break down why you should be positive about what Ohio State's doing, because our NIL is killing it right now, folks. People were complaining about it earlier, but now it's pretty cutting edge, so we're excited about that. So we're going to get into all of that, but as always, thank you guys for joining us. Thank you, ladies. Happy Mother's Day. I hope you guys are having a great day with your wives, your moms, whoever you're celebrating today. It's a great day. Again, I appreciate you guys tuning in. It's kind of a Sunday afternoon, a little bit of a break between the hockey game and the basketball game, so we can get it in a little bit. But if you guys enjoy this content, please click like. Then also hit that subscribe button and send it to all your friends, all your buddies, all your Ohio State homies. I was going to say they all love it, and we're growing like crazy because of you guys, so thank you. If you enjoy our live shows, click the little bell. You'll get an alert on your phone or your iPad, and it'll say, hey, they're going live, so you guys can jump in here and bring that heat. You guys bring some fantastic questions, so we appreciate you guys. And as always, shout out where you're from. Love when you guys do that. It is crazy where you guys are tuning in from, and I love checking it out. It's just unbelievable. Florida, we got Chesapeake, Ohio, we got South Point, Ohio, Huntington, West Virginia. Shout out to all you guys in Southern Ohio watching, tuning in. We appreciate you guys. I read all those comments, so thank you guys so much. That being said, I'm going to bring in my good friend Nevada. Nevada, how are you today?
I'm doing great. I'm calling from Moneyland, USA, because again we had another sweep on our MMA bets this weekend, another +4 units, and we've just been killing it. We're literally handing out free money right now. All you need is your phone and the willingness to type in a couple of bets, and you win. And on a 13-month heater right now, and so I wanted to lead with that, just because we're as hot as the Buckeyes are in recruiting in NIL, and that's scorching because everybody's doing a really good job. So yeah, good weekend all the way around.
Yeah, that's something we're really growing in Buckeye Scoop is the gambling aspect and the handicapping, and we've got a really nice program going right now. So our members are getting scoops early on who to bet on before the lines change. So great deal. I love that. Nevada, your boy Aaron Nolan made the Elite 11 finals. Talk a little bit about him. You know, I know people were down. We lost Dylan Raiola. We didn't get a couple quarterbacks. Jaden Davis. Some of these guys that might have been rated a little bit higher. Aaron Nolan is going on to the Elite 11 finals. Does that surprise you at all?
Well, first of all, let's talk about a couple of concepts. The concept is that there's only one player at every position or whatever that is suitable for an Ohio State offer, and those would be referred to as the Plan A guys. And anybody else that isn't the Plan A guy is Plan B or C or D. And I've always railed against that. I've always look, it's a big country. There's lots of players. There can be multiple Plan A's. And when Aaron Nolan, when things worked out the way they did with Raiola, the way they did with Jaden Davis, and Nolan came onto the screen, I was, I said, and I've said repeatedly, this is no consolation prize. This is a guy whose team averaged, I think, 50 something or maybe even 60%. They scored 700 points last year in the highest rung of Georgia high school football. And this guy is no joke. I mean, he's a teammate of Jelani Thurman, and we know Jelani Thurman is the super freak of super freak tight ends. This guy does it all. He's the penultimate type of quarterback you want in today's college game. Big, strong, can run, can throw. And at the time, I described him as being a more than adequate thrower, but not a perfect pass, not the guy that throws the perfect spirals and throws the perfect passes, but certainly somebody who's on the improvement and can do it all as a quarterback. And now he makes the Elite 11, bumps out Jaden Davis for that last spot, and we're going to get a chance to see him out here in Manhattan Beach, California at the Elite 11 finals. Couldn't be more excited. But I'm totally not surprised. I mean, you do not score 700 points in Georgia high school football without being able to throw the football. You just don't. So the idea that somehow he couldn't pass, he was Tim Tebow or something, it was a preposterous notion this just kind of confirms once again what a preposterous notion it was, and I could not be more excited about having gotten Aaron Noland, and this just makes me even that much more excited.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, you look at the quarterback route. It's a winding road for a lot of these guys. I mean, you go back to the Baker Mayfield draft with the Browns. He went number one overall, Heisman guy. He's a walk-on that started his first game at Texas Tech, goes to Oklahoma. You look also that draft. Josh Allen was, a phenom. Ended up at vaunted Wyoming. Wasn't really that great in college. He had incredible tools, but there were a lot of questions. His accuracy was like 48% or something something crazy. It might not have been that low, but it was low. It was a big question mark. But you look at who his receivers are, what's his offensive line like, what kind of teams is he going against? I mean, Wyoming's not exactly a powerhouse of college football, but Josh Allen's probably the second best quarterback in the league, maybe third best behind Mahomes. But he's a freak, and Lamar Jackson was also in that draft and sank all the way to 32 because NFL teams didn't think he could play, and second highest paid player in the league now. And and he didn't go to Bama, he didn't go to Georgia, he didn't go to Clemson, didn't go to the U, didn't go to Florida State. He went to Louisville. So again, like it's an inexact science. I think that if you put a gun to my head and say who do you want to evaluate your quarterbacks, I mean, outside of Lincoln Riley, it's got to be Ryan Day. I mean, those are the two guys that are, if you go there and you stay there and you play there, you're a first round pick, and you're probably a high first round pick. Like Lincoln Riley. He's got the presumptive first round number one overall pick next year in Caleb Williams, a guy that teams like the LA Rams are already tanking for. They've traded off Jalen Ramsey. They've traded, they cut Bobby Wagner. They've traded every player other than Aaron Donald with a pulse. And they want to go 0-17 or 1-16 or whatever so they can get Caleb Williams. So, again, I think if Ryan Day wants to go on him, that's good. I mean, I'm good with that. And again, if this kid gets here and he can't play, then guess what? We got the transfer portal. We'll go after Drake May. We'll go after a kid that's the next phenom that wants to get paid and throw it to J.J. Smith and Ennis and Tate. And, that's why I sleep like a baby at night when I think about our quarterback situation, because I think that we've got, a guy that really has figured out how to evaluate a quarterback in Ryan Day. So, if a kid, and with the portal, I definitely don't lose any sleep on the quarterback because – what quarterback in the universe wouldn't want to come walk into Ohio State and throw to the receivers we have, with the O-line that we have, and the running backs that we have? I mean, it's like cheating. And you play in the Big Ten. So you're playing, 12 teams that have less talent than you. It's not like playing in the SEC. It's not like playing other conferences. Like when you line up with Ohio State's skill, you're better than every team you play against, including Michigan. Now we didn't play as good as them the last 2 years, but we have better players than they do. So I'm excited about it. I think he's going to be a great kid. He can run, which everybody knows Nevada and I love guys that can run a little bit because it's a lot harder to defend. It doesn't mean I want him to be Tommy Frazier. It just means it's a lot harder to defend if you're a defense. So, but yeah, Nevada, I'm excited for it. Like I said, he's a great kid. My interactions with him couldn't have been nicer. He's built like an absolute brick crap outhouse. I don't want to say the S word and get banged, but, he's a beast. Like I love that kid. So, but yeah, so you're buying some Aaron Nolan stock right now.
Yeah, as much as I can. I mean, the idea that a guy with this kind of tools, who's kind of produced at the level that he has, is now going to come in and get coached by Ryan Day. And as you said, you're playing with all these tools, and you're getting coached up and developed by Ryan Day, and playing a schedule where we've got a decided talent advantage in 95% of the games that we line up in. I mean, I just don't see how he's not going to put up huge numbers at Ohio State. And I think his recruitment is really kind of an indication of kind of an evolution of Ryan Day's view of the quarterback position. I think Ryan Day really was kind of bought into this idea that his quarterback should not run the ball at all and should only be pure passers. And I think Ryan Day's kind of evolved on that as he's kind of learned, as we all are evolving and learning and kind of revising our views on the world. I think Day's evolution on his view of the quarterback position has evolved, and I think Nolan's the latest iteration of that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that like Tom Brady, when he got hurt in 2008 and tore his ACL, he was standing in the pocket. So guys are going to get hurt in football, but there's different types of runs where you can kind of protect the quarterback. Keep him out on the edge, on the perimeter. Tell them to slide. Teach them how to slide. Bring in the baseball coach from Ohio State baseball. Teach Air how to slide or whoever how to slide and protect yourself. Like if it's if you run it, you keep it, you get 7 yards, and you slide and you don't get hurt, and a guy taps you for you to be down. Hey, that's perfect. Then there's no wear and tear. There's no risk of injury. Obviously running in the A gap is a totally different animal. You don't need to do that and get hit by a D tackle and a linebacker at the same time. But keep these guys on the edge. I mean, these guys are athletes. It holds the linebackers. It's a lot harder to defend. Nick Saban, there's great talk about him defending the RPO in the power game. He pulled a guard, and you read. I mean, he literally says it's impossible to defend. So when Nick Saban says that, it makes me perk up and pay attention and say, well, we better put that in, because if he doesn't like to defend it, then nobody's going to like to defend it. But I love this kid. We are actually going to switch gears here to the defensive side of the ball, which everybody loves and everybody's worried about the defense. I think defense is going to be awesome this year. But David Stone, Nevada, 2024 defensive tackle out of IMG Academy. Big old hoss. A lot of people have him going to Oklahoma right now. I'm not buying it. You're not buying it. The Oracle's not buying it. Bank isn't buying it. Why should people be a little more excited about David Stone and his prospects of coming to Ohio State?
Well, communication between Stone and Ohio State has picked up considerably over the last month. And, I wouldn't say confidence is high on David Stone, but I would say that they're certainly warming to the idea that this is a viable candidate for Ohio State. Stone has been viewed traditionally as like a NIL only kid. I think his views on that are somewhat moderating, and Ohio State's liking what they're hearing from him. They're looking at a summer visit, and I think things are going to pick up considerably with him over the next 60 to 90 days, and could be something that I wouldn't say it's trending Ohio State's ways, but Ohio State definitely feels like this one is trending positively for them, and they're much, much, much more optimistic about where they sit with him than they were 3 months ago. So, confidence is getting higher.
Yeah, we got some David Stone film rolling in the background. I've got a super chat here. Do you think you can get JJ Smith on an interview? Yeah, absolutely I can. Probably in the next 2-3 weeks, we're going to get JJ on. Again, people saw that Ennis interview. They saw James Peoples. They love they really, really love what we've been doing. They love breaking their own film down. So I think that, JJ will come on. So I will put some notice up on BuckeyeScoop.com. Again, if you guys have questions for JJ, the super chats are always open. And also, members of BuckeyeScoop.com, I put a thread up. We had a lot of great questions for James Peoples from BuckeyeScoop.com. So if you guys love getting some intel from some of these kids, man, that's the way to do it. If you put it on BuckeyeScoop.com, it's guaranteed to get answered, guaranteed to get asked, excuse me. And, it's fun. I think JJ is an absolute superstar, but that's why, I like the future of Air or whoever our quarterback ends up being, because you're throwing to Ennis, Tate, and JJ. So that's about as good as it gets in the world. I love, I'll get JJ on. I promise you guys are going crazy right now. Here we go. All right. I got a good question for you, Nevada, as I get this David Stone film. We're having a great debate on Scoop about the case for against Knowles as DC. Where do you stand, and what's the case for Knowles? Well, I stand, I think Jim Knowles has good potential. I think that we were hamstrung last year by the talent in our secondary and also by the talent on our D-line. And we played some guys that, frankly, weren't great players. And that's not me being a hater. It's just me saying the NFL didn't draft them. Some of these guys didn't even get free agent deals, and they were starting for us. So that's a little scary when you're Ohio State and you're accustomed to guys being at least a draft pick. Getting drafted in the NFL when they take 260 guys, it's not super, it's hard, but it's not super hard, especially when you play at Ohio State. You should get drafted if you're started at Ohio State. If you don't, then that's on you. But, we've got, I think we've upgraded our secondary. I really do. I think Dave Sinkvinosin is going to be one of our top 2 corners. I think Denzel is more locked in. I think that for whatever reason, since, 2020, there just has been something going on in the defense where guys don't work. And I've heard this from guys that are on the defense that play and say, yeah, this guy doesn't work. This guy's kind of a minimalist. I mean, we've had guys that have had pretty decent careers at Ohio State that don't get drafted. I mean, they don't even get signed to an NFL contract as an undrafted free agent. And people, that's like a $3,000 signing bonus. And literally, if they think that little of you that they're not even going to sign you for $3,000, which is nothing to an NFL team, then that says a lot. It's a lot to me. And again, I think Jim Knowles, he walked into kind of a dumpster fire. Back end wasn't great. I think that Larry Johnson, I'm not critical of him because I think he's a really good line coach, but he played some guys that frankly couldn't play, and he played them a lot last year. He played them over guys that could play because, guys like Mike Hall and Tyreek, they're going to get drafted. They'll be mid-round guys, potential first-round guys, and they sat behind guys that didn't get drafted, didn't sign contracts. So, I think eventually, the rubber's going to meet the road, and these guys that are in year 3 now, you blink, and Tyreek and Mike Hall are your old guys in the room, the third-year guys, and it's time for these guys to go. If they want to be professionals in the NFL, it's go time. It's money time. And the thing about these kids, because I've been in these locker rooms, these kids hit year 3, man, and all of a sudden they start to lock in. They start to work harder. They eat better. They're in the training room more, taking care of their bodies. They're trying to be pros because they want to be pros. So, I think there's going to be, the guy that's going to benefit from that's Jim Knowles. All of a sudden, you got Jack Sawyer wants to go pro. JT wants to go pro. You guys can laugh at some of these names, but they all want to be 3 and out. They all want to be, if you're Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau is projected to be a top 25 pick, you want to be a top 25 pick. You're rated the same as he was or pretty close when you came out, and you're not gonna let the guy on the other side of the defensive line be the guy that's, he's projected to be top 25 and I'm projected to be a 6th rounder. So I mean that drives guys like Jack Sawyer, he's a tough kid, he's a traditional kid. And Jim Knowles is the guy that's going to benefit from that. You just watch. Nevada, I know where you stand on the Knowles, but what's your case for Jim Knowles?
Well, I mean, my case for Jim Knowles is Teron Vincent, Jerron Cage, Cam Brown, Ronnie Hickman, Tanner McAllister. I mean, there's just only so much you're going to do with players like that are, you can't. The old saying, it's not about the X's and O's, it's the Jimmies and Joes. I like you, I talk to the players, I talk to the parents, I talk to coaches, and I all I've heard is positive things about him. All I've heard is about how he's smart, he's hardworking, the defense has a coherence to it. Believe me, if I heard other things than that, I'd be on a completely different side of this. But, when you, in 1 year, you decrease the number of points per game allowed, the yards per game allowed, the points per possession allowed, the yards per play allowed, the third down conversions allowed. I mean, I think is it a final A+ product? Absolutely not. But his position group, linebackers, made the biggest transformation of any group that I've ever seen in my history of my watching Ohio State football. He took Steele Chambers, who was a running back, and Tommy Eichenberg, who was Tough Borland, and turned Tommy Eichenberg into A.J. Hawk and Steele Chambers into a really, really good college linebacker in 1 year. So I don't understand, the despair, the hate, the whatever we want to call it. I'm super optimistic about 2023. Now, if points per game don't go down, if all the same 5 stats that I gave don't continue to go down, then we'll have a different conversation in the year. But I would feel very good that in every major category, Ohio State's going to improve, and I think the OSU defense is going to be, bottom line, dominant. But again, if I wasn't hearing that from people inside the program, I'd have a completely different opinion. But I take my cues from those guys, and they love the way that we play defense, and that was not the way it was when Kerry Combs was there. When Kerry Combs was there, players were in open revolt. They would literally joke about what was being called. He was kind of a running punchline. It was really, really, really bad. And with Knowles, there's none of that right now. I mean, he's a no-nonsense guy. He's a guy that, like I said, has brought some logic to the defense in terms of what they're doing. And, I'm not sure who I'd want as a defensive coordinator over him. I've asked people on the board right now, I'm like, give me a name of 2 people, 3 people, 5 people, one person who, as a defensive coordinator, who's gettable, like I'm talking about, who's currently operating as a defensive coordinator in college or pro football right now, that you could get at Ohio State that you'd want over him. And nobody's come up with a name yet. They came up with, somebody came up with the Michigan guy, the same guy that got lit up by TCU. I mean, that would seemingly be disqualificative right there from being the defensive coordinator. But I'm still waiting on the names of the guys. We should do that in our podcast right now. If you've got names, let's give me a name of somebody that's better. That doesn't a better recruiter, doesn't have any defensive blemishes on his resume, and is a current defensive coordinator in college football. I'd love to hear who that is, because I just can't come up with a name. So I'm
Well,
open.
it's funny because Jim Leonard popped up a couple times in this, and I don't understand the Jim Leonard thing, just because I don't know if it's because he played at Wisconsin or he played in the NFL, but when we played him last year, we beat him 52-21. I mean, and then the next week they played Illinois, who fantastic defense on Illinois last year, but Illinois dropped 34 on them, beat them 34-10. Paul Chryst got fired. Now, mind you, 34 points by Illinois is like Ohio State scoring 500 points, because Illinois was terrible on offense last year. But and then Jim Leonard becomes the new head coach, beats Northwestern, who had maybe the worst offense in Big Ten history last year, despite the fact that their left tackle somehow beat out Paris Johnson for Big Ten Lineman of the Year. Which again, I don't even want to get started on that, but the fact that Paris Johnson didn't win the Outland and the Big Ten, the Big Ten. I mean, he didn't win the Big Ten O-Lineman of the Year. The guy from Northwestern went like 1-11 last year, and their left tackle beat Paris Johnson, who played for the most prolific offense in the Big Ten and maybe even the country. So again, I'm not going to get started on how poor we are at marketing guys like Paris Johnson and Marvin Harrison, but they lost to Michigan State. Michigan State beat them 34-28. So Michigan State also had another horrifically bad offense. They won a couple. They played Iowa. And remember how bad Iowa's offense was. They lost 24-10. Now, mind you, Jim Leonard is a head coach fighting for his job at this point. Like Jim Leonard, I mean, if Jim Leonard would have ran the table, if he would have just beat Iowa and Minnesota, there's a good chance they give him the head coaching job instead of going out hiring a Buckeye and Luke Fickell from Cincinnati. But with all the marbles on the line, the Minnesota Golden Gophers, who also stunk last year, end up beating Wisconsin 23-16. So I think that, the Jim Leonard thing is funny, but I think that people want him because we just don't have him. If we had him, I think people would hate him. Because again, I'm just a numbers guy. I'm not a guy that's a big, this or that, because, people lie, but numbers don't. So I look at the numbers, look at the stats, and I'm like, how would Ohio State react to giving up 34 to Illinois, who's terrible? Giving up 34 to Michigan State, who's terrible last year, and giving up 24 to Iowa. That was like 130th in the country in offense. They gave up 24 points. So, I appreciate the names, because I asked you guys for the names, but, Iowa last year, they beat the South Dakota State Jackrabbits. They beat them 7-3. They lost to Iowa State 10-7. They played Michigan. They scored 14. They played Illinois. They scored 6. They played the Buckeyes in the shoe. They lost 54-10. And they scored 24 points versus Jim Leonard. So that's like the best output of the season for them, other than when they played Northwestern, who's terrible, and their O-lineman should have never won the O-lineman of the year award in the Big Ten. I think this is the second tier to the question is I'd keep Knowles, but I'd have Leonard coach part of the D. Well, the hard part is honestly you need to have a certain number of minority coaches to be able to recruit the inner city. So, do you get rid of Perry Eliano, Tim Walton? I mean, obviously, you got to get rid of one of those guys, and you got to make Jim Leonard the something. Again, Jim Leonard's not going anywhere unless he can be the full-time DC. He's not coming to be a position coach. He's already past that point in his career. Unless he's working for Nick Saban or he's working for Bill Belichick, he's not going to go be a safeties coach somewhere. He's got to be a DC. So the only way you get him is if you put a bullet in Jim Knowles' head. And Luke Fickell offered him to be the DC, and he turned it down. And he's still on the breadline, so I don't know what he's waiting on. But a lot of these NFL jobs, pretty much all the NFL and college jobs have been filled at this point. So I don't know if he's just taking the year off or what he's doing. But I think it was a mistake that he didn't stay with Luke and learn how to be a head coach from Luke. Because the thing about Luke is when Jim Tressel got the bullet in 2011, Luke got retained by Urban, and Luke got a master's class in how to be a head coach from Urban Meyer. So, Luke goes on, goes to Cincinnati, builds a program there, doing a lot of stuff that he learned from Truss and a lot of the stuff he learned from Urban. So I think Jim Leonhard made a huge mistake by not staying on and doing kind of he could have done the Urban Meyer, Luke Fickell thing at Wisconsin and had Luke Fickell with Jim Leonhard as the DC, retaining the interim head coach and keeping the continuity of the brotherhood. It's like Urban kept the Ohio State guy as the DC, and Luke tried to keep the Wisconsin guy as the DC, and it just didn't work. So, but yeah, I don't know where Leonhard would fit with our defense unless we put a head bullet in Jim Knowles' head. And again, I don't think he's that good. I mean, when we played him, we hung 50-something points on him, and then the next week, Illinois scored 34, and he got his head coach fired because their defense was so bad. So that's just my opinion. So. What else we got? Let me see. Great questions right here. This is a great one, Brass Tacks. I appreciate you bringing this up. Nevada, Brass Tacks, this is a great one. We live in a microwave society. We want immediate results, and if we don't get it, it means it's no good. It's not how football works. Again, this is like perfect. I mean, you know why people hate Jim Knowles? It's because that's just how we are. Unless we win the national title and we shut everybody out, if you're a coordinator at Ohio State, you got to have our armadillo skin. Nevada, what are your thoughts on that? Because again, I think people always want what we don't have, who we don't have, players we don't have, whatever. But what are your thoughts on that?
Well, I just think, look, we talk about the numbers, and, one of the keys to evaluating numbers always is get as large a sample size as you possibly can. We've had these Knowles discussions kind of ad nauseum on the board, and I hear people like, well, let's just talk about how he did in the Michigan game or the second game against Big Ten East opponents. And I'm like, why don't we just look at the whole season and kind of evaluate things like there? Because you just got to look at the trends. And I think when you look at trends and you look at larger sample sizes, I think then you become less myopic about little blips here or bad games there or bad quarters or bad performances or whatever it is. Large sample size kind of even those things out, and I think that's why look, we're Ohio State. We need to be better than being reactionary and want every coach fired every season. We came within a bad call or a missed field goal from winning the national championship last year. So I think we're close. We're really close. We'll stay the course in terms of what we're doing. And, if Knowles eats the cadoodle in year 2, then look, I'll be the first one. There'll be a podcast entitled "Let's Fire Jim Knowles," and and I'll lead the thing, and we'll burn him in effigy, and we'll harass all of his relatives on social media, and we'll do the whole thing. But until then, I think we gotta go all in on supporting him and really believe what's going to. And I believe wholeheartedly that the defense is going to be lights out. I have a lot more confidence in the defense right now than I do the quarterback position, and that is not dissing on Kyle McCord, and that's not dissing on Ryan Day, or that's not. I believe more in the defense, and I just have more of a resolute belief that it's going to be lights out. I don't know what we're going to get out of the quarterback. I'm hopeful. I'm optimistic. Recent history would indicate that things are going to be good, but I've got a lot more concerns about that than I do about the defense. I think the defense is going to figure it out, and I even think the guys that are being forced to play, guys like Sonny Styles and Mike Hall and Ty Leak and C.J. Hicks, those are all playmakers. Those are all difference makers, and I just think everything's coming together. I think it's the perfect storm for the defense to step up and have just an absolutely dominant year, and I can't wait to see it.
I agree. I think that there's a lot of pressure on Kyle McCord, man, because we've won the Big Ten Quarterback of the Year, or been first team All Big Ten since 2012, which is a long stretch. That goes back to Braxton Miller, through JT. I mean that's a long stretch. So it's basically 10 straight years we've been we've had the first team All Big Ten quarterback. So and with our weapons, we better get the same this year. I mean, because when you're throwing to Mecca and Marvin, and you're playing Indiana and Antarctica and Youngstown State and Rutgers and all these turds, you better stack it up and crush it, and then nut it up and go beat Wisconsin on the road, go beat Notre Dame on the road because that's what it's going to take. So, it's going to be. And again, I'm like you, like the quarterback and the offensive line. We got to make sure the offensive line's ready to go too, because those guys, like, you tell me about Jack Story and JT, and people are worried about the defense. So I'm like, well, the O line better get ready to rock too, because it's no joke, man. These guys, they all want to play, but now it's time to play. You sat behind Paris and Dewan for all those years. Now it's time to go earn your scholarship check, because these guys all get the same red sweatsuits, but it's time to get going. This is an interesting question. Billy Tuesday, and again, I appreciate these questions. I take Phil Parker, and I think Phil Parker does a great job at Iowa. He's been there for 1,000 years, but he's a guy that I really when I'm Ohio State and I'm looking at hiring a coordinator or a high-end position coach, obviously schematically you have to be good, technically you have to be good, you have to have a good history, good track record of what you do. It has to be sound defensive football, but what is your recruiting ground, and what kind of relationships do you have, and how prolific are you, and how often do you go toe to toe with the big dogs and recruit? And again, it's one thing to be at Iowa where nobody expects you to pull big time players, and you're probably going to be dealing with a bunch of 3-star guys, 2-star guys, and turning them into tough physical Iowa kids that are in the weight room and they play sound football. But you go to Ohio State, man, you got to go toe up against Kirby Smart, Nick Saban. You got to go into Georgia. You got to go into Florida, Texas. I mean, that's a whole different animal. Like when you're at Iowa, you're not going down. You might get a couple kids out of Florida, a couple kids out of Georgia, but that's not like your mainstay spot. And if it is, you're going after tier 3 guys. You're not going after the tier 1 guys that Ohio State is expected to compete on. And you got to go against Clemson and Georgia and Bama and LSU and Texas and schools that have, and now with NIL, they've got real NIL money to offer these kids. So that's what I look at, because as important as it is to be good schematically, like my German Shepherd could have coached, Paris Johnson last year, and he would have been a first round left tackle. It's not that hard, but to coach up a guy and get him tuned in to be, really, really good, who's not Paris Johnson, like that's something that, is a talent, but it'd be interesting, like Phil Parker, again, in Madden, it would be great just because you just plug in the guys with the highest attributes. But in real life, like, can that guy go beat Georgia? Can he go beat Bama? And that's why I think we had to get James Laurinaitis. Like James Laurinaitis, I think the biggest folly of Ohio State currently is that James isn't on the road right now. Like when these guys are all on the road all of May, James is sitting in the Woody Hayes, doing self scout and drinking coffee. So, I think that's something they need to fix quick. But Nevada, what are your thoughts on, if you're hiring a coordinator, how much is it recruiting? How much of it is schematics, getting guys lined up and doing the right thing and playing hard? Because I think that's something, the biggest thing about Jim Knowles is he got these guys to play hard again. Because under Carey, towards the end, man, there was this culture of just laziness, and it looked like vomit on film when I'd watch our defense sometimes in 2020, 2021, and it was disgusting to watch. Getting these guys to run to the ball is it's something that I think people take for granted, but you got to get these guys to get rolling. But what are your thoughts on that?
Well, it would just be interesting that people would rally behind a guy that we scored 54 points against last year. I mean, like if we're cherry picking performances, like we're not. I mean, it's just kind of funny to me that we'd be talking about something like that. And, I mean, I think Iowa's done a nice job. The way that they run their offense, the way that they kind of coordinate with their defense, the way they do it with their 4th and 5th year guys and stuff like that. But I am absolutely convinced that if Jim Leonard or whomever you brought in to the defense with the type of talent that we had last year, I do not believe anybody would have done we'd have been markedly different. Now, would we have beaten Michigan? Would we not have given up those last 2 big plays that skewed the rushing stats? Maybe. That's certainly possible. But I think Knowles' history has been pretty good. It's been a history of improvement. He's a really smart guy, and he is all ball. He's not about outside interest. He's not about outside speaking. He's not about endorsement deals. He's not about John Cooper in the hot tub. He's not about any of that stuff. He is all football all the time. And I just think we got to be a little bit more patient, than wanting to fire him after the last two games of the season, because we've talked about this a lot, but the last two games, other than the TCU game, for the two biggest games of the year for Georgia, were LSU and Ohio State, and they gave up 100 points and 1,200 yards in those two games. So that's against Georgia, a team with more draft picks on their defense than anybody's ever had in the history of the NFL, and Muschamp and Kirby and the greatest defensive staff of all time. So I don't think you just can't just pick out a couple of games and try to draw the worst conclusions possible. I think it'll lead you to make bad decisions.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, it's just part of the deal. So, like for instance, if I say you could get Kirby Smart as your DC tomorrow, would you do it? Yeah, of course you would, because he's probably the best in the game. But in 2021, obviously they came back and they beat Bama in the championship, but that SEC title game, they lost 41-24. And that 21 Georgia Bulldog team had the best defense in college football history, in my opinion. I mean, the entire defense got drafted. They had 3 first-round picks on the D-line. They had the Butkus winner. Just insane talent across that. The big D tackle he won every award, and then they had the one DN went number 1 overall, and then the other guy went number 6 overall this year, and then they had the other rush end go to the Eagles, in like 31 or whatever it was. So, again, and they lost 41-24 to Bama. Now they came back, because Bama ate the cheese, and when you're a rat and you eat the cheese, that trap's gonna crush your head, and that's what happened to Bama when they had those 30 days off, and then they played Georgia again, and Georgia was hungry, and plus JMO got hurt. So if JMO doesn't get hurt, Kirby Smart and Will Muschamp, 2 of the greatest defensive minds in the game, maybe 2 of the greatest defensive minds in history, they could have lost back-to-back games to Bama. So again, it's a razor's edge sometimes in football. So I don't know. I think we got to give Jim Knowles at least one more year. I think ideally you give these guys 3, but in modern college football, you get 2. In modern football, period, NFL, college football, big business, you get 2 years. That's it. PJ Studio, this is a great question. I really appreciate the super chat. Thank you, brother. Super chats always get answered. So if you guys are on here, you want to get something answered for sure, send us a super chat. Pretend you are an NFL GM. I'm going to send this to you, Nevada, first. Why did DeJuan Jones and Luke Whippler fall back in the draft? ? Experts had them going earlier in the draft. What issues will they have at the next level? I'll let you start, Nevada.
Well, I think with DeJuan, it's obviously you've got. I mean, he's massive, and that's kind of a double-edged sword. Is he massive, or is he big and lazy? And he was kind of, the scale was not his friend as he's kind of going on. And then he went to the Senior Bowl and dominated for one day, and then stopped and didn't run and didn't work out at the OSU Pro Day. I mean, there's just and apparently didn't do terrific on the interview sections as well with the NFL team. So I think there were just some flashing red flags, on him about his weight and about his desire. And if you look at DeJuan over his career at Ohio State, and you wonder why he didn't just absolutely dominate every play, is because he didn't play every play, and sometimes he took plays off, and that was an issue with DeJuan. And he didn't have the motor that kind of went all the time, and I think that's why he dropped, and that's why he's in a kind of a, I wouldn't say he's a perilous spot, but he's kind of on he's at a crossroads for his career right now. I mean, DeJuan is a guy that literally could make $300 million in the NFL over his lifetime, or he could be out of the NFL in 2 years. So it's, we're going to see, but I think it's all about his desire, and that desire starts with the knife and fork and goes to the practice sessions, and because he's as good as he wants to be. He's got all the talent in the world. He's as good as he wants to be. Now, with Whippler, I think they had concerns that he was a little small, and not as strong as they wanted him to be in a traditional NFL center. And, we'll see. We'll see with him. I think Ohio State's history of centers, recently with, players like Josh Myers going on and doing what he's done with the Packers, replacing another great Ohio State center and Corey Linsley. I think that kind of saved him in terms of from falling any further. But I think there was concerns about his inexperience and about his size, and I think that's why he slipped down. But I think the Browns got a couple of good ones, and I personally think they're both going to be 10-year NFL players, and we'll see if I'm right or wrong.
Yeah, I think with DeJuan, ultra polarizing kid just because you see the talent, you see the 6'8", 390 or whatever he weighs, and
400.
four hundo. You know, again, like, and that's his problem. Like, you know, when you tell Mike Tomlin has to get on that scale, and you say no, like at pro day, it's not like pro day is like some random pop quiz. It's literally like, no, it's like, you know, when pro day is coming. So if I'm that kid, man, I'm in the sauna every day. I'm riding the Airdyne bike. I'm wearing a sweat jacket. I'm not drinking any water before I go to pro day. Like, especially if you're not going to work out, then you definitely don't have to drink any water because you have to worry about pulling a muscle. But, you know, I don't know what his team was thinking, or if his team couldn't reach him. But if I could, you know, wrap, you know, if I could give Dewan some advice, I'd be like, dude, like, you know, you totally botched the process. Like, you took off after the Senior Bowl after one day. You said they were in a backpack, you know, and again, I love Dewan. So this is coming from a place of, dude, I don't want you to be the next Isaiah Wilson. Isaiah Wilson was a first-round pick for Tennessee 3 years ago, I believe, the year that Andrew Thomas went first round to the Giants. He was like their Paris. He's their top 5 pick. He's gonna make, he'll make $200 million on his next contract. He's probably the best left tackle in the NFL now. And Isaiah Wilson was the right tackle for Georgia. He went to the Titans in the late to mid 20s, first round pick, absolute train wreck. You know, and he was a supersized tackle, 6'8" or 6'7", 350. He's from New York, Long Island, New York, I believe. And yeah, he went to Georgia, was really, he was good at Georgia, but he had a big project, big 6'8" guy, good athlete, but just a big, massive mauler, just like Dewan is. And, you know, he got a big fat check, and he went out and, you know, he got arrested, and, you know, he was doing he did so much dumb stuff that he got traded after 1 year for a 7th round pick to the Dolphins. Shows up for the Dolphins. It was 430. They cut him. The New York Giants. I have a friend that was on the Giants. He said, hey, this guy showed up. He weighed 440, you know, and he's sleeping in all the meetings, and he's trying to get the weight off, and now he's out of the league. He's done. Teams gave up on him. And so, you know, when you're a supersized tackle, 6'8", 390 tackle, there's not a big market for you. You know, I know everyone's like, oh, well, who wouldn't want that guy? I was like, well, there's a lot of teams that are scared to death that guy's going to weigh 450. You know, he's going to eat 75 biscuits before he goes to bed and drink chocolate milk. Because if he's that big when he weighs in at the combine, then how big is he going to be when he's not working out every hour of the day like he is for the combine? He's not on a diet anymore. And yeah, so I think Dewan got terrible advice throughout the process. He didn't work out at pro day, wouldn't get on the scale at pro day. And I, like I said, I love Dewan, but, you know, there's just not a lot of people that want the 6'8", 380 pound right tackle. Because is he going to wear down? He's going to be able to pass block. Is he going to be able to stay in shape and stay in front of guys? Because, you know, he's good at Ohio State, but dude, when you go to the league, man, you're playing, you know, Myles Garrett and Joey Bosa and Nick Bosa. Like, you're not playing Indiana and Purdue and, you know, Antarctica State anymore. You're playing like big time guys. And if you whiff because you're tired or because you're too heavy and you can't move your feet, then, you know, a guy like Deshaun Watson who's making $300 million is going to get killed. So, you know, and on Luke, I just think Luke needed more. He needed another year. I think that some of these guys get cabin fever when they're at the Woody Hayes and they see, oh, well, Paris is out and Dewan's out, so I'm going to go too. I'm not going to be the guy that gets left behind, and I'm not going to be here for the quote unquote rebuild year with CJ being gone. And, you know, CJ was in his class, Paris was in his class. I mean, they're all three-year guys, 3 and out. So the only difference is that, you know, Luke and CJ basically started the same number of games. So, you know, like, I think some guys just want to go. Like Jalen Marshall's a classic guy that just wanted to go. He was good, didn't want to graduate, didn't want to stick for a 5th year. And for some guys, it's just time. And I think for Luke, he felt like it was time. Now, he cost himself a fortune going to the 6th round, but, you know, he'll get to free agency a year earlier. You know, Noah Brown was the guy that everybody thought made a mistake leaving, 7th round pick. And Corey Linsley is a guy that was incredibly good at Ohio State and was incredible in 2013, probably the best center in the country. And he went in like the 5th round. So sometimes, you know, even if you do everything you can do, the NFL will still screw up the evaluation and not pick you. Like, I mean, like Corey Linsley was a guy that should have been a 1st round pick. You know, he's the highest paid center in the NFL, and he went to the 5th. And then Andrew Norwell is even better because he was all Big Ten. Mauled, was a killer on our O-line. He didn't even get drafted. So, these guys don't even draft DeAndre Norwell. He signs for $3,000 with the Carolina Panthers. And I mean, his contract that he made with Jacksonville was like $68 million. So, again, like you can't always, fault the kid because sometimes these guys get misevaluated. I mean, and it happens on the other way too when guys get drafted too high and they end up being busts. So that's a fantastic question. I appreciate that. This is all right. I'm gonna go with Coach D because this is a good one. Nevada, Kirk in Nevada. Do you guys think the Ohio State offense will be way better than past years with Hartline being the OC?
No. Now, I don't think, and that's no reflection on Heartline. I just think that when let's talk about just this year. Like we'll stick a pin in next year because next year is next year. But this coming year, I mean, you just got a big question mark, at the quarterback position. For me, it's a less question mark. Maybe it's a bigger question mark for you or for others on the offensive line. Not as concerned for me. I think, especially with Simmons being in the mix, I think we'll find five guys that can play. But that quarterback position is so dominant in terms of importance at the college football level that I just think you got some question marks. You're going from C.J. Stroud, who's the number 2 pick in the NFL draft and one of the best passers in school history, to a guy that hasn't shown it yet. So I'm going to reserve judgment. I think it's a good move long term to get Hartline in the booth. I think that the chances of keeping Hartline have gone up exponentially, despite people saying, no, Brian never wants to leave Ohio State. He'll always be here no matter what. I just found that a preposterous notion because, you have to promote a guy like that and you have to give him real responsibility. Brian wants to be a head coach. He has intentions of being a head coach. And the path for him being a head coach is go be a successful coordinator at a big program like Ohio State. And that's where he is. That's where he'll be, how good he's going to be. I think it's going to be hard for him to be bad with all this talent. But McCord, to me, like I said, it's the big question mark. If he can manage the offense, distribute the ball, keep us out of bad spots, and don't turn it over, he doesn't have to be all he needs to be is be Stetson Bennett. He doesn't need to be Bryce Young. He doesn't need to be C.J. Stroud. Just be Stetson Bennett, manage the game, play within yourself, and I think the offense can take a huge step forward. But I'm skeptical Hippo on that one.
Yeah, and I agree. And the question you have to ask yourself with Brian, and I've known Brian since he was a young sophomore at Glen Oak, and when he broke his leg in half his senior year, like me and TJ, he was down on the field during pregame. Me and TJ are strapped up in pregame warm-ups. We went up to him and said, "What's up, man?" He's in a wheelchair, legs sticking out because he broke his leg at the first scrimmage of the year, missed his senior year. But I think that Brian, he wants to be Lincoln Riley. And there's nothing wrong with that. And honestly, if you're an Ohio State fan, you should want him to be Lincoln Riley. You should want him to be a $16 million a year head coach. Because Brian, when people say, oh, well, he just says he wants to be the wide receivers coach. And he just wants to make $600,000 a year. And now he's up to $1.5 million as a coordinator. But you don't think Brian doesn't want to be that $15 million a year guy like Lincoln Riley is, or like Ryan Day is about to be, or Ryan's making $10 million a year or whatever it is now. It's like, these guys, when you're a competitive guy like Brian Hartline or like James Laurinaitis, like you don't set a ceiling. Like, you don't set a ceiling where it's like, oh, I want to be a position coach at my alma mater. No, I want to be the head coach of my alma mater. No, I want to be a head coach of the Browns or the Patriots or the Vegas Raiders, whoever, So, and again, and I've talked to Brian a million times about this, but I was like, dude, I just don't say stuff like that. Because then you paint yourself in a corner and people say, oh, well, he said he wants to be the wide receivers coach for the rest of eternity. I was like, no, he doesn't. Brian Hartline, like, do you know how I know Brian Hartline? That'd be like if I say, oh, I just want to make the state. I just want to go. He was a big time hurdler. Won the state championship in hurdles at Glen Oak in the state championship at Jesse Owens at Ohio State at the meet. Like Brian Hartline, it'd be like if Brian said, well, I just hope to make it to the track meet and make the fun. No, Brian wants to win. He wants to win the gold medal. He doesn't want to just make it and hope to show up and be in the same lanes. He wants to kill those guys. So that's the mentality of Brian Hartline. Like, he wants to be great. And again, I love that. I don't, and Urban Meyer is the same way. He's like, any of you coaches, he said, any coaches just want to be position coaches forever and just kind of hang around and, grow roots and moss and buy your home and stay here. Like, he didn't want you. He wants guys that all of his guys, he wanted them all to be head coaches. And guess what? That room I sat in 2012, go around that room. Stan Drayton, he's the head coach of Temple. Tom Herman, head coach at Texas. Now he's at Florida or FAU. Vrabel, head coach of the Titans. Fickle, head coach of Wisconsin. Larry Johnson, or he wasn't in there. Fick was, but Everett Withers went on to be the head coach at Texas State. He's down with Tom at Florida Atlantic now. So, I mean, those guys all went on to be head coaches somewhere. And it wasn't because of just some cosmic accident. It's because that's what Urban really pushed. And plus, all those guys, they had ambition. And again, if you're an Ohio State fan, you want your coaches to be ambitious and hungry. You don't want them to be just big softies. So we let me see. All right, Dave, this is a great question. I'm going to ask this to you, Nevada, at first because I had my long diatribe. Dave Rice. Again, I appreciate you, my man. You're a regular, just like Paul. A lot of you guys, appreciate you guys. Kirk, why is it a smart move for players from Ohio to go to Ohio State, especially Central Ohio guys, for after their playing days are done? Nevada, I'll let you take that first because I've already waxed poetic on this, but I will, and then I'll follow it up.
Well, I just, on at the highest possible level, I'd point to a guy like Archie Griffin, who has made a fortune just being Archie Griffin and just being pleasant and smiling and nice and being the ultimate representative of Ohio State University. And that just goes down to every job that you get is easier to get. Every business contact you get is easier to get. Everything in your life from a business standpoint is easier in Ohio when you played football at Ohio State. And, again, it's ridiculous for me to talk about this when I've got Mr. Barton here who's living proof of every bit of that. But that would be my take on it. Is that just, if you want to put your life on easy mode, be in the business world and as an ex-Ohio State football player doesn't guarantee you success, but guarantees you that doors would open that wouldn't ordinarily open up and would open up very quickly.
Yeah, like I told Kyle Kalis, and Kyle's a kid that I really liked and a kid that I know and I still talk to today. Like, look, if you want to live in Cleveland, he's from St. Ed's, when you're done, go to Ohio State. If you want to live in Ann Arbor or Birmingham or Northern Peninsula or somewhere in Michigan, then go to Michigan. Like, that's the easiest way I can do it. It's like, because it's all the same. They're both great educations, both great schools. Obviously, I hate Michigan, but if you want to live in Michigan the rest of your life when you're done, go to Michigan. But if you do that and you come down here, don't be upset when people aren't dying to help you because you kind of told them to F off in recruiting and you went to Michigan and did what you kind of upset the apple cart because you want to be the cool guy and be, different. Like again, if Ohio State never offered me and Michigan offered me, I could have gone to Michigan, but Ohio State offered me, I went to Ohio State, and that's in the story. If they both offer me, it's not even a question. You go to Ohio State. It's not even close, but, it's just, and like, that's why, and the only reason I say this because there's kids from Ohio that don't get Ohio State offers. They go to Michigan, and I can't fault them for that because, they're a good school, but again, Ohio State is, if you're an Ohio kid, you get that Ohio State offer, and you don't come here, I think you're absolutely insane. And I think you're going to regret it. And I think it's going to be one of the dumbest things you've ever done in your life because, there's kids that want to go to Clemson and they want to go to Bama and, ask Trey DePriest how that worked out. He went down to Bama and do you think they care about him in Bama anymore? No. Is that Bama thing do anything for him in Ohio State? No. State of Ohio? No. So, and again, I'm not being negative towards Trey, but some of these kids, they like to go be contrarian. They like to go be different, go be cool, leave Ohio. And again, I just think that it's like a super highway that's already been paved and created for you. If you just go to Ohio State, you do the right things, you network, you get to know people. Like all of my best friends are via Ohio State football. And I'm talking about people like Nevada Buck, people from Buckeye Scoop, people from the business community in Columbus, and again, I don't, like just walk around, in all Ohio State gear all the time, but like it does give you a little bit of notoriety, and it also does, it just helps. Like people, they like to, talk football a little bit, it kind of breaks the ice a little bit as you're getting into business meetings before you really get down to the nitty gritty and performing in business. But I'm just telling you, I tell these kids, I'm like, look, if you want to stay here, go to Ohio State. I mean, like Lorenzo Styles Jr. played it perfectly because he came back. He's got the Notre Dame degree. Now he's going to have that Ohio State network. And again, the people that did better than anybody in history was the Bourne family. I mean, the old man, Mike Bourne, played for Bo Schembechler at Michigan. Ohio State didn't want him. They didn't offer him. And he was a monster at Michigan. Very good player. Justin goes up there. Obviously, Lloyd Carr retires. Rich Rod, the whole thing. Justin comes back down here. Then Zach comes here. Then Jacoby comes here. And that family's made a fortune off the Ohio State stuff. Now, they work hard, and they're really good at what they do. Mike started a really nice business, grass groomers, and they've got, a dumpster company that makes a fortune. But, if they all go to Michigan, is it as prolific? I don't know. Maybe it is. I don't know if they'd have the Ohio State, landscaping contract if they all go to Michigan, so, and maybe I'm crazy. Maybe they're just that good and nobody can cut grass better than they can. But, when they all go to Ohio State and then, sacks Devin Gardner and does all that, like, it all kind of just like fits. And then Jacoby Bourne starts as a champion as a center on the national championship team. Like, again, like, and I love that because they're the greatest story. If I was a recruiting guy at Ohio State, I'd say, look, none of these guys played in the NFL. None of them. They didn't play none of them played a single snap in the NFL. And guess what? They have just crushed it in the local business landscape of Columbus, Ohio. So, they're my cheat code. If someone says, well, should I go to Michigan or Ohio State? Well, look what the Bournes did. I mean, why can't you do that? Why can't Sonny Styles and Lorenzo Styles Jr. do what the Bournes did? Set up shop in town, and people love supporting Ohio State people that are good people, that worked hard, that played well, did the right thing, and it's just easy, So there's my diatribe on what Ohio State means to me and to these kids. And I tell these kids, I'm like, look, if you don't network like crazy while you're there, you're out of your mind, because there are people that will help you that are in prestigious positions, CEOs of Fortune 100 companies that will help you because they like Ohio State or their dad went to Ohio State or whatever. And if you don't latch onto that, that's your fault. All right. Let me see. What else we got? Guys, you guys are bringing some great questions right here. I know, Fredo knows this is a cough, Aaron Scott. I love that. But he's a perfect one. He's like looking at Michigan, Ohio State. I'm like, dude, like, if you're from Dayton and you want to live in Dayton or you want to live in Columbus when you're done, like, there's a reason why guys like Mike Conley and all these basketball players that have made $200 million all live in Columbus afterwards, because people take care of them. The people want to do business with them. It's a good gig. Nevada, you feeling good on Aaron Scott? I think we'll end with that, 'cause I feel really good about him.
Yeah, feeling really good about that. I mean, it's like no reason not to. Everything I'm hearing is positive, and I think Ohio State's going to clean up, get just about everybody they want in state. I'm virtually everybody they want, and I'm feeling really good about that.
I totally agree. I think it's about to be get Bryce West going, get a bunch of these guys to commit, and I mean that defense is going to catch up to the offensive commitment rankings really quick. Well, we're going to wrap this thing. Nevada, any final thoughts? Great podcast. Happy Mother's Day to everybody, but any final thoughts?
No, just on the Justin Bourne thing, that was an old Nevada Nugget back. I remember breaking that and people going, "There's no way he's going from Michigan to Ohio State, Nevada." That's one thing. Second thing, for a little known fact about Kirk Barton. Kirk Barton used to wear his Ohio State football helmet to Costco in lieu of a mask during the COVID thing to kind of market himself as an Ohio State football player, and it's just face covering right there. So I think that everybody knows already. They see this big monster come walking in there. You don't have to wear the football helmet, Kirk. You don't have to do that, man.
Hey, man, it kept me from dying during the COVID pandemic, so that's perfect. Thank God, I was masked up and I survived it. So, well, that's a little inside humor from me in Nevada. But I appreciate you guys as always. Happy Mother's Day. Thank you guys for tuning in. The regulars, appreciate you guys as always. Great questions. Again, thank you guys so much. Because again, you guys bring the fire. You make this thing a blast. So we love doing this with you guys. Appreciate all the energy you guys bring. Fantastic questions. If you guys weren't on this live show, click the alert on YouTube. We usually go around 7:30-ish. But again, we just love doing this with you guys. Great questions as always. Again, it's just fun. We just love kicking it with you guys and breaking some film down and talking about the daily news in Ohio State football. So, with that being said, if you guys enjoyed this content, please leave us a like, click subscribe, send it to your friends, your buddies, your homies, everybody that likes Ohio State football. Send it to them, text it to them, email it to them, pigeon carrier, whatever it takes. But we appreciate you guys so much. And if you like the live shows, click that little alert bell. You get a little alert on your phone every time we go live. I actually have it on my phone. It pops up. It's hilarious. So it lets me know when I'm going live. But it is pretty cool to get that notification so you guys never miss a show. So appreciate you guys as always. And always shout out where you're from. Again, shout out Portsmouth, Ohio, South Point, Ohio, Chesapeake. I mean, you guys are coming from everywhere, man. Worcester, Japan. I mean, so it's just wild. So we appreciate you guys so much. But thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you so much, Buckeye Nation. Thank you, Scoop family. I only am going to jump on BuckeyeScoop.com before this Oilers-Kings game. But I appreciate you guys. I hope you guys had a great Mother's Day. And I'll see you guys tomorrow. So keep being you. Keep killing it. Thank you guys for tuning in. Go Bucks.